we don't think of your films in the same sort of as the voluptuous kind of libidinal films of Ken Russell or Adrian Lyne, somebody like that. So that there isn't the same sort of lust for lust's sake investment in sex in your movies as in these other people.
Well, over my career, I get more and more successful, and I realize I can do those things. And a lot of the times you don't want to do it because you can. But once I'm in a position I can, then a lot of devils come out.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about it. It's also, it's really interesting that, on this topic of sex and cinema in particular, because there are basically two boundaries. There's the green rating, which is the G rating. Remember that? It always comes in the green little back. And that's actually the scariest rating in the Hollywood system. And to give you an idea, when we made Sense and Sensibility, the first cut of the film was submitted to the Motion Picture Board for review, and they came back and gave the movie a G.
G rating.
A G rating. And the studio said, "This is impossible. You contracted with us, you have to give us a PG. That's the kiss of death." And so we did some more editing on the picture, and I guess somebody Hugh Laurie, who, which is...
in an argument at a party saying, "You're a damn fool, that's a damn lie." So the two damns, you can get a PG. And I told him, each one cost $10 million. You make sure that you let us listen. Make it very clear to us.
So on the one hand, there's the G, which is actually a real kiss of death. And on the other hand, there's pornography, which is, it's interesting because there was a moment, it's like a little moment, it was about 4 or 5 years ago that as far as one could tell, porn was actually earning on a gross level as much per annum as mainstream box office ticket sales, if you can imagine that. But that's actually how that works. So the economy of it, it's like this other world economy, but it's actually bigger. It was bigger for a moment than American box office. But they have pushed the frontiers, as porn always does, of new media and technology, obviously the internet. And basically they're seeing their industry drop off a cliff as pornography becomes more and more accessible for free, just like the recording industry and just like your movie saying will be shortly. In between those two zones, it's really interesting. The coding is so specific of what you are supposed to do when you shoot a sex scene. It's a fundamental law of American cinema that two fairly attractive people do this, then that, and then whatever, and then that, et cetera. And our first intersection with that was actually the Ice Storm, where our goal was to shoot the worst sex scene in the history of cinema, which is the one in the back of the car with Joan Allen and Jamie Sheridan. And it's very hard to do, actually. It was, I commend
Actually, that's our first clip. Why don't we roll the first clip, which is, actually, I guess you could say play the first clip, which is one of the sex scenes from Ice Storm. Maybe we can talk about the distance that you've traveled from that time to now.
I love doing bad sex scenes in American cinema. That and Thanksgiving scenes.
So can we have that first clip?
Oh, it's not sexy.
The worlds collide. What? The 30 movie. The worlds collide.
What are you kids doing down here?
What do you think we're doing, Dad?
Now, it seems to me of the many things one could say about this scene, the pleasure of sex is probably not one of them. So
I don't know about you, but I'm pretty...
And I was thinking back to some of your early films. It seems to me that maybe the sunniest of your major pictures, Sense and Sensibility, doesn't really have a lot of sex in it. So why do you think in these movies sex was so problematic an issue for you?
It was problematic for me, I guess. Well, I think it's a strange mentality. Sensibility, all the 4 movies I did was sunny and warm, melodramatic and funny and cultured. And I had a great success on that. And up to Sensibility, I don't know why when people say, I love Sensibility, I would just want to punch them in the face. I just couldn't take it anymore. It's very hard to explain why. And I feel compelled to do that movie. Somehow, actually, I did this movie with Sensibility on the flip side, where the sense tell you it's an era where you're forced to be open up. And I want to show this conservative side. Actually, people are very uncomfortable about that. So that was the movie. So it's just sort of the flip side of what I used to do when I started out in my career. And that's one of those scenes. Actually, the movie is full of those scenes. And actually, I run into a great problem having a tragic ending at the end when I have to deal with Elijah Wood, the kid's death. Actually, we killed a kid. We electrified it. So that becomes a problem. Just finding the tone of the movie was the single most difficult thing I did up to that point. The movie was actually, the first cut was a lot funnier. It was hilarious. You know, most scenes are like that. But I have to deal with this tragic ending. I have to tone the movie down quite a bit. And I finally get like 18 cuts of the movie. I just couldn't get the movie put together. I just didn't know how to do it. And finally, I figured out without the help of music, which it gives a guidance of how to watch the movie, actually I complete the movie. So you find that's a poignant scene, actually. Dad, for some reasons, is having adultery with the mom. And he's in the wrong house, and they come in to bust those kids. And the Nixon mask, of course, is hilarious to me. To make it more haunting, actually, I did makeup on the mask. The bottom mask, I did makeup. I dig the real holes, and I put real eye brushes, and I paint on them so it looked more scary, more real. I just found it very funny.
I'm glad you say that about the tone of the movie, because to me that's maybe the central interest of the movie, is these very subtle shifts in tone that take place from scene to scene. In fact, our next clip is the immediately next scene when Ben is walking out of the house with
this
Wendy.
scene's like right after they're busted. So you got a warm scene right after, like a very high comic moment. At that point in my career, I found it's very interesting to challenge the genre.
Can we play that clip too? Our next clip is the next scene.
The rules of the games, when you mix them up and challenge them.
Look, kiddo, don't worry about it. I really don't care that much. I'm just not sure he's right for you is all. It's just you develop a sense when you're older if things are going to work out or if they won't. And sometimes it's not worth the mess. Your toes cool? Come on, I'll carry you.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you about that is you really seem to like trees. Trees show up quite in important moments in your movies, don't? And it reminded me of the bamboo scene where it's a similar kind of older man, younger woman by themselves situation.
I guess so. Sometimes I just have the shot of the trees, and Jen was to remind me, it seems like you have something to say, then I have to cut it out. He's very cynical about that when I show just trees.
I'm not cynical, I'm practical. It's like a lot of trees. It's true, I hadn't really thought about it because usually I just have an instinctive response to just get rid of them. But we do, by the way, and this is a big sales moment for me. In our upcoming film, Taking Woodstock, there's a fantastic, really long tree shot with Dimitri Martin where he just looks at some trees, right? And I let you keep that in.
Well, I guess what I meant to say about that scene was that was very much what you were describing as the sort of fluidity of tone from one to the other. That as you change the scene,
That's
and all of a
very
sudden
difficult
the
to
rage
do.
of the father is actually didn't mean that much to me.
Well, life, I think, is a mixture that doesn't make sense. That's life. In movies, because we want the audience to watch something in 2 hours, in a dark room, you have to put them on certain track. There's genre, there's a way of doing things you cannot show them in the world. So when you mix genres and feelings and film styles, it's very difficult. They didn't quite know how to take it. So I took that as a great challenge. The same way Kevin Kline's character in this movie, he kept giving mixed signals to the girls. Like they busted her, then a minute later, look, doesn't mean, he's trying to talk her to forget about it. It's just, try to be a good daddy. So between stern dad and the liberal dad, and the girl doesn't know what to follow. That's life. To prepare his character when we do the rehearsal, I'll take one line, like, go to girl by 10, young lady in a minute. And I have him say in a way to keep repeating the line until the girl won't go to bed by 10. So that's the character. I have to totally demolish his confidence as a character and as an actor. So this movie, a scene like that is a good test for it. Actually, that was the first scene we shot in the movie. He was very worried about it. It's a 14-year-old girl. Where should I put her? Here, here, here? And he was very nervous because the movie is about awkwardness and you don't know what to do. I think it's a very difficult movie for filmmakers. To make it look easy, it's actually quite tricky. And I did have a hard time with the movie.
And that awkwardness is accentuated by just having seen her face over another man's shoulder, being the situation with Mikey before that. So there's a kind of sexual echo in that moment.
It's a mixture. That's life. And you're supposed to be moved too. I think that's difficult.
Well, it's hard not to see that fluidity as something that you're sitting against the icy rigidity of their lives, of the ice storm in
Clarity
general.
too. Like it's a purified, it's a cleansing. I think.
But is there also a kind of do you feel a struggle as you're describing it of attempting to find also a sort of organizing coherence to the movie against that fluidity? Is that a problem?
You have to. My editor and usually James is the first guardian to that. Like if I go too far out, and then he'll say, no, how we're supposed to take it.
It's
Bring some
interesting.
sense out of me.
It really varies
You
from movie
have
to
to.
movie.
Yeah. That's the dilemma. You want to prove that's wrong, that's you don't want to do, but then you want to be inside of it, so people can see it. No matter how brilliant idea in the air, you have to bring it down to the ground, so people can communicate with you.
I mean, we had that with Ice Storm in particular because it was something that we did in pre-production more than any other movie probably, which is the preparations with all the heads of the various departments, the cinematographer, the art direction, everything. And certain key metaphors and concepts came up that were really helped to clarify both that mixture of fluidity and rigidity that was so essential to the movie, the awkwardness of it, and one I'll never forget when you articulated, which I had never thought of, and so we were sitting around this room with all the research and talking about ice, which is of course water, which flows and just goes wherever it's going to find its way, and then it becoming ice, just absolutely solid and hard. But of course, ice is that reflective surface, which really is the screen too. And from there became probably the most miserable task of our professional lives, which is shooting a movie in which about 70 to 80% of the scenes have reflective surfaces in them. And,
Cinematographers don't like that.
well, those movies tend to co-star your grips eating donuts in the background. It's a very difficult thing to pull off, especially on a low-budget film. But it was really important that was what you see through and what reflects and what moves and what stops was really of the essence of that movie.
That effect on choose of sceneries and objects around them, the surfaces, the houses, they all have to come together. They all culminate into this ice storming scene. To me, in my head, the closest genre actually I was using is not family drama, it's a disaster movie, which is very popular in 1973. The disaster hits home. So the last part of the movie, I was actually thinking about, what's the movie, Snatchers of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I even have shots imitating some organs with eyes. So that's what I had in mind, and the eyes just creep up psychologically.